Bob. Welcome back to Kudlow. So I want to talk a little trade. Some very big decisions coming up regarding the U.S. and China, regarding steel tariffs, regarding U.S. investments, even tariffs. Nobody better in the entire world to have this conversation than former Trump trade representative, my very good friend Bob Lighthizer, who taught me an awful lot about that game. Bob, welcome back, former U.S. trade rep. There's a whole bunch of things to talk about, and you can help us if you would. So one of the things you're concerned, and rightly so, bills floating around the House or the Senate, Chuck Schumer, that might somehow lift tariffs off the existing Chinese tariff list, even though we have not gotten satisfactory yet completion of phase one or anything else like that. What can you tell us about that? What kind of mischief may be going on?
So first of all, it's a pleasure to be on the show, Larry. It always is. And it's a terrific show. Secondly, Senator Schumer has long been an advocate for U.S. industrial policy to meet the China competition. I salute him for that. I worked with him on that. He and Senator Young have put together a bill on innovation and competition. But amended to that bill just recently is a provision that would, one, start up the exclusion process to let a bunch of people out of the tariffs. Was President Trump's view that, hey, these CEOs had 2 years to figure out how to source someplace other than China, and they should do it. So that's troubling. And then they also put in something called the miscellaneous tariff bill, which is sort of a swamp creature here in Washington, where a bunch of tariffs are reduced on a variety of issues based on people lobbying certain sources. And that also, about half the benefit of that goes to China. So I think the underlying bill is really important. I don't endorse every aspect of it, of course, but it's a really strong bill. But this amendment on the exclusions and on the miscellaneous tariffs is clearly a step in the wrong direction when we're trying to meet competition with China. The last thing we want to do is let them off the hook on a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds to me, I acknowledge I have not looked into this as carefully as I'm sure you have. But I'm just saying, based on your narrative here, it sounds like a softening with respect to China trade. And after all, the deals that you negotiated with China, they have a shelf life. I mean, we're still looking at these deals of commodities and manufacturers and intellectual property and so forth and so on. So why, I mean, does Biden agree we should soften or take out tariffs, or is this just Schumer?
Well, we'll see. First of all, I don't necessarily think this is Senator Schumer's idea. I think it was an amendment offered by other people, and he was in a position where he thought he should accept it. But, you know, this is lobbying. People, individual businesses lobbying to get a break. And I think it is a step in the wrong direction. I think that these things take time. That trade bill, or that trade agreement that we entered into a year ago in January, that trade bill is going to go on for a long, long time. It takes time for people to bring jobs back to the United States, to get more secure supply chains, and to do anything that would go opposite of that is very, very bad idea. Now, on the basic tariffs, the Biden administration is still studying that. My guess is their preference is to keep those tariffs in place. I certainly hope it is. I think the USTR, who's very able, has that view. Catherine Tai, I hope that ends up being their view. I hope it ends up being that. It would be a real step backwards if it wasn't. Look, at one of the things that President Trump is proudest of is what he did in trade. It's one of the reasons he ran for president.
Yes.
And he set up the red flag on China, and he changed the whole policy, so we're worried about working people. We can't do anything to let that change. All the Biden administration has to do is keep doing what we did. Every indication is that they ought to put their own spin on it. But for right now, you know, I feel pretty good. But this Senate bill is troubling. The Senate bill is troubling.
Bob, let me skate through just two quickies in the remaining time. I really think the main point is the one you've looked at here on China trade and the tariffs and all. But two things. I think that President Biden is going to keep the Thrift Savings Plan retirement fund out of Chinese military companies, which O'Brien and I worked on, you worked on, Gene Scalia. I think that. In a word, what do you think? It's a little ambiguous right now.
it's unclear what they're going to do at this point. My hope is that they will do that. That would be a real step backwards. They're clearly looking at shifting some of the investment restrictions that we put in place, taking the enforcement agency from the Department of Defense to Treasury. That's not a step in the right direction, in my judgment. But but on the thrift plans, I'd be surprised if they let those invest in Chinese companies, particularly these Chinese companies.
Good. Last one, Bob. The steel tariffs are coming due. There's a headline that U.S. and Europe will have a truce on steel and aluminum tariffs, heading off a June escalation as two sides negotiate over excess capacity. Do you think the steel tariff should be used as a negotiating tool, get rid of? What's your own personal view on that? Personally, I was never in favor of the steel tariffs, but you're the expert.
Well, let me say this. First of all, you have to go to basics. We need a steel industry, absolutely, for sure, for defense and for the basic of our economy. There is massive overcapacity brought on by non-economic grounds, and we have to keep the tariffs in place, in my judgment. You could debate whether or not we needed them originally. We clearly need them now. And I don't believe there's any real evidence that they're inflationary or doing any real harm. And what the Europeans are talking about now is not doing an escalation that they'd be permitted to do by the WTO, and that's all fine. But you have to either have tariffs or some kind of an agreement not to surge in this market.
Right.
It's a global problem. You have to have a global solution.
I'm running out of time. You got to come back. We have to talk about the whole digital sales tax and minimum taxes and all the rest. But, folks, that's Bob Lighthizer, former U.S. trade rep, the best of the best in that business.